Bonsai Dream.
Hello guys, thank you so much for following my YouTube channel. Today I'm here in Grand Rapids and I'm gonna work on this beautiful Douglas Fir. Fir is a sub-variety of spruces that grows here in the United States. All the north area has this beautiful tree. I was actually just a few days ago in the Sierra Nevada, and where I've been, there were this beautiful big fir, probably 30-40 meter tall. We can say that fir is one of the other giant tree in United States after the big redwood, and they can really grow a lot. They grow in this mountain area higher than a certain altitude, and they have this beautiful trunk with this fantastic bark. They can be a little bit related. If for European people you see this tree far away, it can look really like a spruce, a Norway spruce that we have in Europe, but is slightly different. It's very dark, but the buds are very different, and also branches are a little bit more thin than spruces, but still the vegetation is very flexible, and is one of the good trees to make a very nice bonsai here in United States. You need a kind of a cold climate. Fir doesn't grow in very hot and humid places. This tree in particular probably comes from Colorado. It was collected in the Rocky Mountain. There are a lot of fir in the Rockies as well as the Sierra Nevada. This tree had beautiful character, this bark, the taper of the trunk, and there are a lot of branches in different positions. There are some interesting gene and old part where the tree probably died. When they grow in this way, means that they were in the middle of rocks. They tend to thick up the trunk because they grow in between rocks, and then because the snow and the avalanches, they get squished every year, so they tend to grow more in the horizontal way rather than in the vertical way, how will be the normal growing habit of these species. This tree has a lot of character in the main trunk, and then has this long branch that I really like to consider as the cascading branch for one of the options. As I'm studying the tree now, there is an interesting option in this side, using this lower branch as a kind of a second tree in cascade, and then shape the main tree here. Or if we turn a little bit the tree like this, we can be able to create a nice little compact tree, just shorting everything in, using the more compact foliage, and we can have first branch, second branch, a nice back branch here, and then the apex here, so we can squish everything to just the first part of the trunk. Personally, I feel that the second option is a little bit limiting the potential of the tree. I think we can be able to create a more interesting tree using this side as a front. The base moved a little bit more. In this part, the tree is a little bit more static. I think a little bit for this side of the trunk with the base and having this long branch, we can be able to create a tree a little bit more dynamic. So first thing first, I want to scout this part of the trunk because I can see some dieback coming from the gene, and also in this area the tree is losing sap, and there is a deeper area in the trunk than the other one that is for sure connected to this strong branch. So I want to start opening up this part and see that maybe we can find out a nice shari to this part of the trunk. So first thing first, working on the deadwood, and then a little bit of a cleaning. There are some gene that I wanna clean and get in evidence to highlight a little bit the age of the tree, and then I will start wiring and shaping the branch. Let's go. So I start cleaning the upper part, and then I carve in a shari line in this part of the trunk that was a little bit deeper. So doing that, I can give a little bit more interest to the lower part of the trunk and try to highlight this gin, connecting all this part to the upper deadwood and creating a nice shari line. Now I try to go around this gin a little bit, remove a little bit more of the wood in this section. So in this way I can change the sideline of the shari and make it a little bit more dynamic, starting from a very extended area and slightly going down on this V. It's very important that the side of the shari has to be nice and clean cutted, so then next spring the tree can develop a column all over this line and seal itself. Here we are at the end of the work on the deadwood, so I clean all the gin, clean the top part, accentuate this shari in the front of the tree. We can already appreciate the nice flow of the tree with these lower branches that I will shape as a kind of a second apex. And it's incredible. Unfortunately, you can't feel the smell that now is in the room. It's a very intense smell of this fir. Remind me, the fir we have actually in Europe is a silver fir we call Picea alba, or in Italian abete bianco. Means like is a spruce, even if really is a fir. The foliage is very similar, with a couple of nice white line underneath the foliage, a little bit thicker than this one, same buds, same sort of buds. Unfortunately in Europe it's impossible to find Picea alba for good bonsai purpose, because normally they grow very straight, they have a very high apical dominance, they almost never grow in a rocky area like differently happen for the fir in the Rockies. Up in the Dolomites I never saw an interesting one. And the other thing, the Picea alba never make a very old bark, but normally even very old tree in the middle of the forest that they compete with spruces, they have very smooth bark. black, but the smell, the intense smell, is almost the same. When I start doing that wood, re-switch on this memory of some of the pizza I saw in nature, and the smell of the wood when you break a branch or you are just close to the trees. So now the next step will be start wiring the lower part and start creating some pads, and then working on the top and on the back part of the tree. I always start wiring my trees from the lower branches up, starting with the structural wire, following the directions, and out to the finer branches. On this link you can see a video about my way of wiring trees, and also you can buy my book where there is an article with all the tips and tricks to get your wiring better. Wiring is very important because it is the major tool we have to position the branches in safety, using the correct amount of wire, and trying to not stress the tree too much, because wiring is very stressful for our trees, especially the first time we do on the raw material. I'm very careful on putting the wire in the proper way and never overwire branches. I rather prefer using a gauge smaller rather than a gauge too big. I can always use the movement of the branches with some guy wire if the wire is not big enough. Okay, so now that all the tree is wired, I'm going to start from the lower branch and set the pads and going up to the apex. So here we are at the end of the work. I'm very happy about this final result. I was debating myself this morning a lot about which front to use. I really love that branch, but in the same time I thought that this was kind of the safest way to go. But at the end I decided to create something more different and go with the double crown rather than create a nice compact tree using this front here. So I use the second option, and it pays off. At the end I have to say it pays off. I'm really happy about what the tree is gonna give me in terms of aesthetic, and that branch became one of the most important part of the tree. Opening this shari was also a good idea to highlight the taper of the trunk and create a natural connection between the natural gene and the strong base, and creating also a nice taper up to this top. Now the tree will let grow to free next spring to gain strength, and then start selecting the buds, and probably after the spring flash pinch out all the apical dominant shoot, so the tree can start creating more inner buds and fill it in, and probably in a couple of years it can go in a nice bonsai container, because there is actually no work to do on the root ball. Root ball is very compact. The bigger root that probably was cut away when the tree was collected is already healing, and there are no other big roots, but just probably 5 roots. So in a couple of years we're gonna look for a nice pot and repot this tree. I had a great time working on this tree. Is a fantastic species here for United States. I wish we have spruces comparable to this fir in Europe, because I'd love to have some of them in my collection. But it's good for me to travel and be working with such great tree, thanks to my clients. See you at the next episode.
Bonsai Dream.
Blah blah, pumpkin spice latte, blah blah blah.